All right, greetings. Welcome back to Blackbird News, where everything is connected. How y'all doing? Man, that bear can be loud sometimes. Sometimes the bear be loud. Good to see you. That's Colorado River, Poppy, in the thumbnail. And we've touched on it. We're live on YouTube, X, and on Rumble. If you please let me know if you can see the stream on X. X is being really weird telling me that it's like I can see the stream in my timeline, but it's not showing up on the side and it's not showing up on my profile that I'm streaming. So I'm sorry. I am on X. Maybe you can see me and I can't see me. I'm not sure. Not sure. Anyways, we're live at all the usual places. Let's start out with some comedy. Some guy heckling the National Guard in DC. You can see me? All right, good. Yeah, it shows me that I can see that people are watching on X, so. Just a quick comedy at the top of the show.
Why does everybody in the National Guard have that porn mustache from the 70s? You guys look like Bottom Gun. Anyways, it's good to be here in Iraq. No, I'm just kidding. This is like Comic-Con out here. I love the National Guard, or as I like to call them, the Washington Commanders. The Commanders have a little bit of a better record at the moment. The U.S. military, they went about 0-20 years in the Middle East recently. Now, we just created a bunch of power vacuums over there, which is not a Dyson product, unfortunately. I think the National Guard and the Coast Guard should just play a volleyball game and then kiss. Let's get it over with. Okay, we're having a good time.
All right.
Why does everybody in the National Guard have that porn mustache from the 70s?
Everybody has a porn mustache from the 70s. We're good. We're just slow to get going, I guess. Or, whatever. Things just shake out how they shake out. Some more people will come into the show. But Poppy was the one to claim first in the chat, so good job, Poppy. You get a gold star. Ching. Yeah, I know X is being weird to me. Is anybody else getting like really crazy amounts of spam calls? It's so weird. My phone for a long time I've been getting a steady stream of like spam calls, but like the last couple of days and weeks is really like gone to like phenomenal numbers, and I don't know what's going on. You've been getting a lot, Poppy? Oh, okay. You get like 10 a day? Okay, so it's not just me. Okay, good to know. It's not me going crazy, not me feeling paranoid. Okay, good. Yeah, I've been getting a ton. So somebody has found a way. I think also what's happening is somebody is hijacking phone numbers, because I got an odd call and a message from somebody the other day saying, they left a message on my phone saying like, don't stop calling my phone or whatever. I'm like, I'm not, in my mind, of course, I didn't call them to tell them this, but I was like, I'm not calling you. So I think what's happening is they're finding a way, the spammers and the hackers and the NSAers, I don't, all this stuff that's going on, like, sure, it could be spam people, could be hackers, but I would absolutely put a 50% bet that all this stuff going on is from Palantir, OpenAI, whatever, Oracle, CIA, NSA, like all this stuff is just psyop crap going on from our good friends at the intelligence agencies. I would actually put more than a 50% bet on that. That because that's what they do. That's what they do. They like to mess with people. Yeah. And made people feel some kind of way, and and on top of that, that there are lots of ways into your phone to hijack your phone, right? And so, never, if you get one of those crazy texts from people, never click on the link. Never, really try. try not to interact with it as much as you can, because these things can often be phishing to get you to if you interact with it in any way, shape, or form, it will send some kind of virus into your phone, or send some kind of, so like, just be very careful with all of these things. Okay, so I'm not alone. That's good, and it's good that we can discuss it. What was I going to say? Something else. Yeah, it's annoying. It really is annoying. But be very careful. Be very careful interacting with all this stuff. Or maybe it's AI. Maybe it is, all of the. Maybe it's their way of like pinging everybody. Just to test. They're doing tests. I don't know. Testing out signals, testing out whether things are getting through. I'm just guessing. Denver says, I suggest it has to do with all the databases being unified into some API. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. All of these texts and phone calls and all that is their way of like pinging everybody into a network, or I don't know, getting points of data. Your phone is auto pinged every time you leave a Wi-Fi zone. Yeah. Yep. Let me read the rest of your comment. I suggest it has to do with all the databases being unified into some API like Palantir. And on the marketing side, contact lists are probably selling more lists now and to a wider range of customers. That's true too. Well, for a long time, and a majority, and I'll move on from talking about this pretty soon, but a majority of the spam calls are coming from within my area code. And for a long time, they've been coming from within my area code. So what they're trying to do is, on a very crude level, is seem like a local call. Oh, somebody's calling from my area code. It must be somebody I know, or somebody, somebody I have business with, right? It's a way of like trying to get you to pick up the phone because it's coming from your area code, not somebody else's area code, right? Maybe it's somebody I know, maybe it's somebody local. The reason why I think they're hijacking phone numbers is because all of these calls I'm getting, this onslaught of calls I'm getting, are all from my area code. And I think that they're hijacking people's phones and calling other people, right? And hijacking their numbers and calling people. So you have a bunch of people going like, where am I getting what? Anyways, it's insidious and it is annoying. And I really wish that they would stop, but I don't know that they're going to stop anytime soon. It's almost like we need a consumer protection group or something on the case. All right. Remember I showed you the thing about the rabbits with the what was it called? It was a virus, and I don't remember the name right now. But apparently, other animals having issues. Apparently, other animals are showing up with the same kind of tumors. And whoa, exactly. Deer are turning up with large wart-like growths on their bodies across the U.S. They are the latest species to show signs of a viral skin disease that has also been seen in rabbits and squirrels this year. What do you guys think this really is? Do you think it is a climate change thing? Do you think it is a I mean, it's obviously they're reacting to something different in the environment. Something is different in the environment. Do you think? I mean, who knows? As I said, do you think they're reacting to technology? To do you think they're reacting to a surge in um, electromagnetic interference in certain environments, right? I mean, who knows? Who knows what it could be? It could be almost anything. Pollution. It could be herbicides, pesticides. I don't know. Synthetic proteins like mRNA. Who knows what the real reason? They're telling us it's why I can't remember the name of the virus. It's a virus that's well known. It's been around for a long time. It's generally well known, and I think now that I'm seeing this, I think they're just calling it that virus because they don't know what else to call it. Like it's just a good cover. Oh, it's it's whatever the name is, I forget. It's such and such virus. That's what it is. But they really don't. Thank you, papilloma virus. But is it the papilloma virus, or do they really don't know what's going on and they don't? This is just a cover story. I think they're just labeling it papilloma virus and covering. And remember, I said Sabrina Wallace, right? When I was first talking about this, and this is going a little more tinfoil. She thinks this is a reaction to electromagnetic frequencies or, whatever it is that they're rolling out to, control the environment. Right. Which a lot of people connect electromagnetic frequencies with. Again, we're now we're straying into tinfoil area, but geoengineering, putting specific metals or materials in the environment that react with the electromagnetic, with the frequencies. I don't know. Non-plastic cysts, a disease, a virus, a mutation. So who knows what this is? I have no clue, and I'm not gonna, I couldn't put my foot down and say like it's absolutely this thing. I'm just laying out like all these different ideas because in my honest opinion, like nobody really knows. Not even Sabrina Wallace is sure that it's something else. I don't know if she's right or not. I have no idea. It could just be a virus. My guess is if it is a virus, my guess is this is a reaction to climate change. That it's getting warmer. Obviously, there are shifts in animal habitats. Right, they're getting smaller. They're being inundated by pollution. It's getting warmer. Things are changing. Things are different. Right. So it allows the occurrence of this virus to proliferate. But I don't know. So I don't know. Those are my best guesses. I have no idea. It is concerning though, right? Sorry if I couldn't give anybody a definitive answer. I absolutely know it's this. No, I have no idea what this thing is. I have no idea what this thing is. It's concerning. That's all I know. But it's something. It's a story that is interesting and that we're going to keep watching and looking at. There are other things that we know that are going on that are obviously a reaction to. Hold on one second. Hold on one second, y'all. Other things that we know that are a reaction to a warming world and a different and a changing habitat. Massive flooding in India, and this is a daily occurrence. Massive, life-altering, sometimes life-ending flooding is happening every single day somewhere in the world, and most of the time, many places in the world. And this is in Thailand. And maybe again, there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, they're making this happen, blah blah blah. Or maybe that's one of the reasons why they're trying to go full authoritarian lockdown, is that this is one of the points of collapse, environmental collapse, along with economic collapse. Way easier to control people if you have everybody hooked into a grid. But however, on the environmental level, like, how does this help? This actually undermines, like, nothing works when it's too hot or too cold, right? Electronics don't work. So how is that electronic control grid, how is a technocratic panopticon going to work when everything's too freaking hot? Even data centers have a boiling point. You can only keep things cool for so long. And the nuclear power plants that you use to power the data centers, you can't keep them running if it's too hot. So how is this helpful? You can't keep them running if it's flooding. How is this helpful? So, for the people who think that this is being generated or being done, maybe, but not really. Like, how is this doesn't really, when you destroy infrastructure, or things, weather happenings are so extreme that, like, people and places and machinery can't function like that. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But to each his own. All right, but we're going to shift from possible climate change conspiracy to possible climate change conspiracy. From James Lee, we're told that remember we were just talking about this, the spraying of glyphosate in the forest last week. I was showing you the Dan Dix video, and I was, in my mind, I was like, this does not make any freaking sense. But I guess it does make sense. Build back better. But it does make sense on the level of, like, disaster capitalism, right? Like, doing things that for short-term profits that don't help anybody or anything in the long run, right? So apparently, if you spray glyphosate in the forest, it gets rid of plants and trees that you don't want, leaving the trees that you want to cull. Kind of like how they use it on farms, right? Anyways, let's look at this from James Lee.
Why is the whole world on fire? Is it climate change, or could something else be going on? Okay.
Now, it's fine that he's presenting it like this, but always remember, it could be both, and it probably is both. And this is something that I'm more sure of, is that it's a mix of things. It's a combination of things. So you have climate change impacting environments, impacting areas, and then you have a mix of boneheaded policies by governments and corporations that exacerbate the situation. How do we get in this situation in the first place? Boneheaded policies by governments and corporations to make money hand over fist at the expense of the environment and the expense of people's health. Kind of simple. Kind of simple and straightforward. So this is what this is boneheaded policies that are short-term profit driven, that impact people's health and the health of the environment. That's what this is, which is a microcosm of the overall problem called climate change. That's what climate change is. Literally what climate change is. Climate change is humans doing stupid shit that screw the earth up. And I say humans not because we're all responsible. Sorry if you don't like that answer. But it's just true. Yes, all the wealthy people are doing it, but if you let them do it, then you're responsible too. So can't help, sorry, can't change that one. As long as you sit around going, I wish they'd quit doing that, well then consider yourself responsible. Here we go.
Okay, so a couple days ago, I was sitting in the airport in Madrid and I saw this headline pop up on a Spanish news channel, Waves of Fire. So I started digging into why all these massive fires are happening in Spain and the rest of Europe, Canada, US, all around the world. And most point to climate change being the cause, which, okay, not going to deny. But then I came across something strange, something disturbing, which is that we are, quote unquote, grooming forests by spraying glyphosate on them. Okay, according to the CBC, the Canadian forestry industry is spraying thousands of hectares of public forest with glyphosate each year to promote profitable carnivorous growth and to eliminate hardwood species like aspen and birch. And glyphosate...
I just have to stop and say, is James Lee watching my show? It's weird. Or was I just covering the story like a week or two before him? Or was Dan Dix covering it a week or two before me? I don't know. It's just interesting. It's funny.
Glyphosate is, of course, the key ingredient in Roundup, a pesticide, a weed and grass killer. And evidently, we are spraying this all over our forests to some pretty bad effects. Quote, researchers are growing increasingly critical of this common forest management practice, as studies show it may be causing fires to travel farther, faster. Aspen and birch burn more slowly than glyphosate-resistant carnivorous trees, and some experts say removing them is quite literally stoking the fires that have plagued the province. And why are they doing this? Well, they say that, quote, it's an efficient way for the forestry industry to streamline cut blocks so they can contain the most profitable kinds of trees. So like everything else in the world, profits over people. But sure, it's hikers that are the big problem. Let me know what you think.
Okay. I'm glad he's covering it because a lot of people see his stuff. So is going to get, some wider coverage. But I mean, even though that is a story about, nefarious intentions by companies to increase their bottom line, it's still a story about climate change. It's still a story about climate change at the end of the day. Anyways. Where was I, guys? Okay. Colorado River is also going down. Why is it going down? It's because HARP. No, it's not because of HARP. It's actually because there's less water. Colorado River powers over 16 million families, 5 million acres of farmland, et cetera, et cetera. In 2025, it's collapsing at an alarming rate. Since the government and media won't show you, here's the story of America's deadliest ticking time bomb. And it's true. And I've actually seen the Colorado River with my own eyes look lower and lower and lower. If you don't know, I traveled the country for years as a musician, and I drove over the Rockies several times a year. Several times a year, I would drive over the Rockies because I drove all over the United States, and I would see the Colorado River over the time that I toured. I saw it get lower and lower and lower and lower. Excuse me, with my own eyes. Stretching 1,450 miles, the Colorado powers the Southwest. It supplies Phoenix, LA, San Diego, and Denver. It irrigates 90% of America's winter vegetables. It lights up Las Vegas through the Hoover Dam. Lose it, and the American West shuts down. And, there's plenty of evidence that all of the dams in the areas that it feeds are struggling with their water supplies. The stakes are massive. Colorado supports 16 million jobs in farming, real estate, energy, and tourism. If Hoover Dam fails, it won't just be crops at risk. It's homes, businesses, and entire economies. This is bigger than any oil shock in history. The river is drying up. Since 2000, it's lost at least 20% of its flow. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, its two giant reservoirs, are at historic lows. If they drop much further, the Hoover Dam stops producing power. The lights go out in Vegas, Phoenix, and LA. This isn't just climate. The problem is baked in. In 1922, the Colorado River Compact promised more water to 7 states than the river ever produced. For 100 years, demand has been greater than supply. Now the math is catching up. Farmers take the lion's share. 80% of the river goes to agriculture, alfalfa, almonds, lettuce, and beef. Cut farmers and America's food supply collapses. Cut cities and growth stops. Every choice is catastrophic. Meanwhile, private firms are circling, quietly buying water rights, betting on shortages. This is true. When supply collapses, whoever controls the taps control the future. That is absolutely happening. See Michael Burry. This is how water becomes oil 2.0. Colorado is just the beginning. For Michigan and Mississippi, America's water systems are collapsing under drought, overuse, and privatization. The West is simply the first domino to fall. Yeah, and there is, privatizing water is a huge business and a huge problem. U.S. government is scrambling for a solution. In 2023, states agreed to cut 3 million acre-feet of use. But scientists warn the river may lose another 30% by 2050. The cuts are a band-aid on a severed artery. 40 states face freshwater shortages within a decade. Every year, the U.S. loses 6 billion gallons of clean water from 250,000 pipe breaks. Today, water monopolies are using the same playbook, quietly turning collapse into dynasties. If America's water collapse feels inevitable, it's because we're trying to fix our 21st century crisis with a 20th century model. The solution isn't bigger government pipes. It's building decentralized systems that treat water where it's needed, fast, secure, and local. Also, common sense, population control, Jesus Christ. As in, wrap it up. Instead of poisoning everybody, hoping that everybody will die off, or giving them sick care instead of health care, why don't you just treat people like everything else as, important, and then realize, like, you don't have to, if you actually value people, then you wouldn't just say, like, oh, just have all the babies and we'll figure it out, after they're here. Okay. No, we're not figuring it out. Anyways, whatever. Too big of a subject to cover right there. Our model at Water on Demand is tackling this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, the solutions are always boneheaded junk. I don't really want to read it. I mean, there's probably some interesting things they have to say in there, but mostly not really, because they still are stuck in the micro. Yeah, the problem is just overuse of everything. And, again, we're just allowing that to happen. And that's what it is. Anyways, let's keep going. Overuse of everything and use of the wrong things. But we don't operate, humans in general just don't operate like we could have common sense policies, and we could have, logical, and yes, the people in control and the large corporations are not allowing for people to have logical, common sense, practical solutions to everyday problems, right? Or even long-term, right? 10-year plans and looking at problems 20 years into the future, right? Because everything is about the bottom line and about short-term profit and about short-term goals at the expense of long-term consequences. And that's, again, literally how humans operate generally. And that's a problem. The US in specific operates that way, right? I'm sure other cultures, I hear people talk about China operate, they have like longer term plans and goals, for their country or their citizens. And, that's sounds better. I guess, but in general, humans just don't operate that way. Malcolm says Elon is a dick. Has already killed us in a few decades by his Starlink eating our ozone. By the way, yeah, I just saw a Paul Beckwith post about how the rocket crashed into the ocean and exploded. Nice. I was wondering too about the ozone. We were talking earlier about calling something as a cover, like the papilloma virus as a cover for something else that's causing these tumors in the animals. It occurred to me, and we've talked a lot over the years about increased levels of UV and the fact that the ozone hole problem hasn't really been fixed or hasn't really gone away. And I wonder if the whole chlorofluorocarbon thing was just a cover for, something else that was eating our ozone layer, right? Like radiation or I'm sure if Deline was here, they'd probably go like, oh, of course, dummy. Yeah, like if it was radiation or all the nuclear tests that we did in the 50s and the 60s in the stratosphere and the ionosphere, if that was the thing that destroyed our ozone, and they were like, oh man, we got to find something else to blame this on, because if we tell people the truth, they'll be like, what? And we can't tell people that it's never coming back. We destroyed it forever. Thanks. Have fun. And it occurred to me this morning, like, that's totally what could have happened. The Montreal Protocol and the chlorofluorocarbons and all that kind of stuff was just a complete like cover for some other reason for the ozone layer, disappearing. I don't know. It's Timothy says they say that Lake Powell is about to fall below pool. I had a guy explain to me he is selling his Arizona house because, oh shoot. I just was talking to a friend who was saying that like some people are moving out of Texas because it's too hot. Really? Yeah. I mean, it's hotter. It gets hotter and hotter. I missed it. The air travel disappeared. The ozone disappearance. I mean, who knows what? Like, if you think that maybe they're not telling us the real reason for the ozone layer disappearing, who knows what it is? Yeah, it could just be the burning of all the fossil fuels. It could be airplane. It could be air travel. It could be nuclear tests. It could be rocket tests. It could be, who knows? Malcolm Young says we have 2 ozone layers now. The upper one is wounded. They're about to get worse from Musk. Second is lower in the atmosphere and is causing health issues and more global warming. Well, and I see people posting. I saw somebody recently posting pictures about trees dying. It's because they're spraying us with the geoengineering. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Just everybody everybody is showing all these problems that I've been talking about for years on this channel, and other people have been talking about for years on this channel. They're showing like certain things happening, and they're like, "Oh, it's because of the geoengineering. They're spraying us." It's like, yeah, no, but you won't take in any information about other things that could be happening. You just want to jump on that one like immediately. I mean, maybe it could be, but maybe it's a combination of things. Maybe it's a bunch of things. Did you think about the higher UV? I mean, people have been covering the fact that UV readings are really high for a long time. Who is it? Mr. BBB has been doing that on his show for as long as I can remember. As long as I've been doing this show, I used to show his videos of people doing UV readings from around the country, and they were off the charts. Duh. Do you think that might be killing the trees? Probably. I've shown plenty of videos of the trees, dying in my city. All the trees dying in my city. Could be, it's warmer. There's higher UV. Sure, maybe they're spraying things. It could be just a bunch of things. Could be humans are just doing a bunch of dumb stuff that's killing the planet. It's just easier to, they're spraying us, just so you can point at somebody and go like, I don't know, I'm just here, I'm just living my life. I don't have any responsibility in this. I don't. Okay. If it makes you sleep better at night, I guess. Sure. Here's an example of why humans probably should become more responsible for their actions on the planet. Here's a really good reason. And I'll explain to you why this isn't just about the rich people or the people in power. It is, it is kind of. They're the ones that make the policies, and most of those policies are boneheaded, short-term profit, driven policies. Yep, that's true. But if you allow them to do that, then it's your problem too. And we allow them to do that because in the short term, we're like, this is great. Awesome. So it's a we problem. It's not a us or a them problem. It's a we problem. So listen, percentage of CO2 emissions by world population. The richest 10%, that's you and me. The richest 10% is everybody that lives in a Western nation, on down to the poorest of the people living in the US are in the richest 10%. You understand that? So it's not about like the people in the private jets and the billionaires and the 0.01%. No, the richest 10%. That means you and me. We are wealthy beyond our wildest dreams. And yes, you feel like you're poor. I know. Weird. But if you realize how everybody else on the planet lives, like you are super wealthy, super rich, super wealthy, super privileged, extremely privileged. Trump is not thinking long term. No. Well, Trump is a robot. Trump is literally an automaton. He has people controlling him. You know, do this, do that, say this, say that, and he just goes and does it because he has no other choice. Anyways, do you understand the poorest 50% of the planet are responsible for only 10% of the total lifestyle consumption emissions? But it's not just about emissions. It's not even just about emissions. Like sure, we could talk about CO2. And people could be like, carbon, you're the carbon they want to reduce. Everything is made of carbon. Okay, sure. It's not about carbon, people. It's about the mining and the shipping and the digging and the transporting and the production and the glyphosate and the spraying and the chopping down and the digging up and the scooping all the fish out of the ocean. That's the 10%. Trickling on down to this other percent. The poorest 50% are the least responsible for the destruction of the planet. And if you really deeply sit with this graph and deeply understand this graph, and I'm saying this in full acceptance of my hypocrisy as a citizen of a Western country who has every technology and life convenience available to me. The way to stop climate change or planetary destruction, we'll just call it planetary destruction, is to literally be poor. Just be poor. That's all it is. And that, hardly anybody will ever really be able to onboard that. The whole thing about getting wealthy, being successful, getting more, having more, doing more, owning more, buying more is the thing that is killing everything on this planet, including you and me. So the way to fight that is to literally be poor. Just, you don't have to do it. You don't have to disagree or agree. Just sit with it. Just think about it. Just deeply, sit on a rock overlooking a cliff and just think about that. We'll just keep going. Oh, here's James Hansen. This is another number one climatologist in the world, James Hansen. He spent 50 years studying what humans are doing to the climate. He's gone out on a limb time and time and again and been proven right. His message is far worse than they're telling you. I'm not going to go through this whole post because I don't have time right now, but that's all we need to know. It's far worse than they're telling you. Which is why one of the reasons why they're going full sprint into authoritarianism. It's not the reason, it's part of the reason, is that things are going to, the condition of the environment is going to deteriorate drastically over the next decade. And people, and the economy is going to deteriorate. all of those things are going to be happening. And a lot of people are going to be, they've spent decades telling people that climate change is false and it's, oh, you know, you're stupid and you don't know what's happening, you know what's going on. And like, literally everybody repeats this bullshit that they cooked up in a think tank and sold to people. From Rush Limbaugh to Grand Theft World, you know, to everybody just repeats this nonsense over and over and over, and it's just very fashionable right now. And so they've won the culture war and the marketing war about climate change. And so when it hits people are just not even going to know. It doesn't really matter if you think that it's 5G or HARP or, you know, Dr. Evil on the island lair pulling a lever. It doesn't really matter what you think. It doesn't matter if you believe it's climate change. It doesn't matter. It's just going to happen. And so the fallout from that is going to be, there's less food, there's less water, there's less livable environments for people to be in. People will be constantly flooded out, burned out, forced to move. And it's going to be way more chaotic on this planet. That's just what it's going to be. And, you know, and you could disagree. That's cool. And, you know, I'm down to hear all theories and all dissension and all, you know, whatever. But like, it's just what's going to happen. And over time, you know, people are going to go, wow, oh man, this really sucks. It won't matter because if they can lock everybody down, or they're going to try. You know, before anybody has a chance to resist or get out of it or do something different. I don't know. Iran has run out of water. Yep. Yeah. Malcolm. Yep. It is the new normal. I mean, it just is. It is become just a normal thing where people are getting flooded out, tornadoed out, wildfired out. It is a thing that happens all the time. And people have all kinds of theories as to why it's happening. And, you know, it's fine. Have all the theories you want. It's not going to change the fact that it's happening. It's going to keep happening. It's going to keep getting worse. So what are you going to do about that? You know, what's your mitigation plan? What's your, you know, ultimately, like, what, you know, you're going to have to escape you wherever it is you live at some point because of some extreme weather situation. That's way more likely than it ever was. And it's likely for so many people. Alcohol is your plan? Good plan. Hide in the woods and grow food. All right. That's a good plan, Poppy. I like that. If you like the show, if you want to support the show, could use your support. The show comes to you for free every single day, Monday through Friday. And I try to bring what's relevant. This is the first day I've been talking. The first day I've talked, you know, predominantly about the environment in a long time, because there's just so much wacky news going on. But I try to, like, you know, I try to mix it up. But if you want to support the show, there's lots of links in the description box of whatever channel you're watching on. And thank you, Kate. I appreciate you. for supporting me. What do you wrote something to me here. Tried buying a music version of Bella Ciao on Bandcamp earlier. I'm checking to see if my Bandcamp is working now. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Thanks, Kate. Appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Bandcamp is changing their I don't know. Bandcamp got bought out by an MDC. If you're an old punk rocker, you know what an MDC is. Yeah, they mostly still run the same way, but they're changing their payment payout method. They haven't really changed too much, which is good. I'm happy about that. You know, like CD Baby got bought by a big, large shark of a company, and they mostly have stayed the same, which is cool. They kept that model, and they didn't like. You know, the problem is that when corporations like that own a company, that is generally good for the little guy. Like there always generally comes a time when they go like, ha 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 ha, we're gonna switch it up and make it real, you know. But the thing is, if you make it too hard for people to use, or a place that people don't really want to come, then you know you're going to have people pulling their stuff and pulling your business. So you got to walk the line, I guess. You were using my PayPal account to see if I could send money to someone else, since Bandcamp flagged me for. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, it worked. Yeah, Bandcamp has changed their payout method. Anyways, a long story. From PayPal to Stripe. So that could have something to do with it, Kate. I don't know. I'm not sure. John, glad I have 3 270-gallon totes I keep filled for irrigation. Yeah. All right. Okay. Going through some other news stories real quick. Some people are at least in the government and governments and state governments around the country are, you know, openly resisting the Trump thing. The Trump power grab.
Other officials, I recently received a letter from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
I think she threatened to jail this particular person.
It purports to notify me that Washington State, and these are her words now, has been identified as a so-called sanctuary jurisdiction. Her letter threatens me, police officers, state troopers, sheriffs, judges, and other officials with prison time. Why? Because our state legislature passed a bipartisan law that appropriately and lawfully limits the diversion of state and local resources to federal immigration enforcement. This letter embarrasses and disgraces the office of the United States Attorney General. In the America that I love, have taught my children to revere, we resolve our differences peacefully through public discourse, and if necessary, through the courts, not by threatening political opponents with imprisonment. Pam Bondi seems to think and seeks to have Washington State bend the knee to a Trump administration that day by day drags us closer to authoritarianism. I am not intimidated by Pam or the president. Nobody standing behind me is intimidated by Pam Bondi or the president. We will defend our democracy the rule of law, and the people of our state.
All right. Well, we're going to see how that goes. Yeah, I think so too. This is the DA of Philadelphia. Says he's going to prosecute ICE officers if they break the law.
If what you have is a group of ICE agents, or you even have the military coming into Philadelphia and they're committing crimes, they're committing assaults that are illegal, homicides that are illegal, they're kidnapping people, they're engaging in unlawful restraint, which is a crime in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they're obstructing the administration of justice. If you have people coming in, military, ICE, whoever it is, acting beyond their legal authority, they can be prosecuted, assuming they commit crimes, in state court. And they cannot be pardoned by the president, which means they get to tell a Philadelphia jury exactly why it is that they thought they could invade this city, and they get to bear the consequences, whether they are handcuffs, a jury trial, or a jail sentence.
We'll see if that actually comes to pass. Hamas recently took out a bunch of journalists, a Hamas camera. The Israeli military says that strike on a Gaza hospital that killed 20 people, including 5 journalists, was aimed at what it believed was a Hamas camera. What? So definitely you can tell what a Hamas camera is, especially, from far away. Didn't know there were such things as Hamas cameras. That's all you have to do is just blame it on Hamas. It doesn't mean, bomb some innocent people in a tent. Oh, there were Hamas hiding in there. Kill journalists. Oh, they were Hamas sympathizers. They were on the payroll. We knew they were on the. They're just lying and lying and lying. And God help you if you believe these people. Reports from Gaza City are quite clear. Israel is sending bomb-laden robots into populated neighborhoods and detonating them. A point of assassinating as many journalists as possible is to clear the way, not just for their atrocities to go unreported, but to attempt to absurdly blame them on Hamas, which they are doing. So they put out a post saying Hamas is using bomb-laden robots. Oh, sure, Hamas just, has those things in droves. You know how they use those bomb-laden robots. They're just saying anything. They're just making it up. They are just habitual psychopathic liars. And it's horrific that this is allowed to go on, obviously. There is a protest at Microsoft offices about the fact that that Microsoft services are being used by Israel. Microsoft President Brad Smith held a press briefing after today's no Azure for apartheid occupation of his office. Asked about Microsoft's relationship with the Israeli military, Smith said the vast majority of what Microsoft does for the Israeli military is to protect the cybersecurity of the state of Israel. That is our primary focus. There are some other activities as well that involve the use of Azure for storage, for example, for processing of data. On August 6th, The Guardian with Plus 972 magazine and Local Call revealed that Israel's Unit 8200 had used Microsoft's Azure cloud to store and analyze massive volumes of Palestinian phone call data. one of the largest surveillance systems ever built for a civilian population. The data was then used to plan airstrikes on Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. Leaked documents show Microsoft executives, including CEO Satya Nadella, knew Unit 8200 was archiving 1 million calls an hour with custom Azure infrastructure. The revelations forced Microsoft into a second external investigation over whether its work with Israel violates its own human rights policies. Well, we have to investigate. No, you are violating not just policies, but I'm sure there's probably some criminal activity in there beyond your policies. We'll call it criminal activity, like, war crimes, aiding and abetting war crimes. How about that? Sir, you know that you're aiding and abetting war crimes. But, looking quite comfortable and relaxed there.
Microsoft, you can hide.
We charge you with genocide.
We are here today not because we want to be here. It's because we need to be here. Every day, every week, martyrs are dying. We've lost
Right, Denver, yeah. Isn't it Authentics that they're using?
We've lost Rifat Al-Arir. Who else can we lose? Who else can we afford to lose in this moment? Brad Smith is the face of human rights at Microsoft. And yet Microsoft, every day, continues to abet this genocide. Every Palestinian phone call in the past few years has been stored on Microsoft servers.
Sorry, brother, that's very loud. But you can see them protesting there. Catherine Austin Fitz also thinks, yes, like many other people, this is not necessarily a unique thought, but she's also putting it out there that the deployment of troops to several states and cities is to front run some protests. It's National Guard and military deployment on city streets in anticipation of unpopular budget cuts. She's saying there's going to be budget cuts. I don't know.
It's too bad the Doge effort wasn't sincere. Maybe someday it will be, but it's too bad it wasn't sincere because, between the cuts and what they're doing with tariffs, it's not enough. It's not working. So if you're afraid of what's going to happen if you institute major cuts, especially with entitlement, you want physical control. You want the army on the ground. So to me, my question, and I don't know the answer, is the deploying of the National Guard and the military in anticipation of what's going to happen in the budget.
That's interesting. Or what's going to happen on the streets, or what's going to happen in the wake of a big crash and subsequent bailouts of the usual suspects.
Right. Because as we said a couple of weeks ago, if you think bailing out banks is bad, where do you see what happens when you bail out billionaires? It's too bad the Doge.
I mean, there were a lot of people that thought that was a sincere effort, or who wished it was a sincere effort with all their hearts, in the beginning. And, I think it pretty quickly became apparent that it was not sincere. But what it wasn't the purpose of it was infiltration. It was a Trojan horse, right? They were getting into all of these agencies in order to install AI systems, basically, which people called before it happened. So there you go. Preemptive National Guard deployment does not sound good. It is not good. Right now, it's in a lot of Republican states. And a few, there's DC and there's LA. They're all over the place, but they have not been officially deployed to blue states. But I think that's part of the positioning, right? Is to get them into all the red states and get where they're going to be accepted or allowed without any resistance, and get people used to that idea. before they start moving into blue states, right? Which is ultimately the goal. That's why he was threatening New York, Chicago, and other places with federalizing of the police. All right, now before we get out of here, I'm going to go. This is for just, isn't this strange? And let's consider this. Just, this is interesting. It's all interesting videos to watch. Okay, before we get out of here.
So, to anyone who's deep in the rabbit hole, bro, buckle up, bro, because this shit is absolutely insane.
And I'm sure some of you have heard this before.
I took some notes here, so I remember what to say. So, in 1893, this guy named Ingersoll Lockwood wrote a 3-part book series, right? The first one is called Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump. The second one is called Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. And the third one is called The Last President. All right? In the first book, Little Baron Trump lives in Trump Castle in Germany. And he finds a manuscript by a man named Don Fum that leads to underground tunnels in Russia that have portals to other dimensions. Okay? The first 2 books are just about Baron Trump and his dog, like, exploring all these weird dimensions, right? But this is where it really gets weird, bro. In the third book, The Last President, Don Fum uses these portals to become a controversial president who lives on 5th Avenue in New York. And he basically ruins the price of gold and is super controversial and ruins everything. His vice president's name is Pence, bro.
I'm gonna, and that is wild, isn't it? Isn't it wild? I mean, it's kind of freaky. And I just want to stop right there, and I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from precious metals, and the gold and silver crowd, but he just said he ruins the price of gold. What does that mean? He ruins the price of gold. What does that mean? And does he have the ability or the power to do that? So if you're, I'm just saying, if you are a precious metal hoarder, buyer, holder, and there is a possibility that the thing that you spent a lot of money on to hold as a hedge becomes worthless, or even half its value or less, how would you feel about that? Could that happen? If that happened, what would you do? It's all forms of monetary value, right? Like our at the hands of these madmen that are in control, right? So you don't really know what to hold on to. Do you hold on to cash? Do you hold on to crypto? Do you hold on to precious metals? I don't know. I mean, I don't think that he can ruin it single-handedly, but it's just weird that he said that. When he said that, I the first time I watched this, I was like, hold on a second. He ruins the price of gold? Hold on. That's something to pause on right there. Well, and here's the thing. Denver says all assets will be revalued in fake tokens, including gold, thereby ruining the price of gold. So here's the thing. The gold and silver market are highly manipulated through ETFs. right? Through share values that are based not necessarily on actual real commodities to back it up. Highly manipulated, very manipulated, extremely manipulated. Everybody knows this. So can they manipulate them into, can they manipulate them, out of being worth anything? I don't know. John Glad says silver and gold will be worthless for the first few years after the collapse. Commodities will be king. Cannot ruin gold. We can ruin today's rival digital currency. Well, what if you ruin gold in favor of Bitcoin? That was actually my first thought, was that you'd somehow drive down the precious metals market, and people are like, oh, I guess it's Bitcoin that we're going to do, right? Because he's doing this to the crypto market right now. I don't know. I have no financial advice from me. I'm no expert. I don't know. I'm swimming in the pool like everybody else. And if there is a huge crash, that's a time when you kind of don't really know which way things are going, right? You don't know which way things are gonna fall out. So and it sucks because you want to be in position before a crash, right? Whatever you're doing, you want to be in a position before the crash. You want to be out of whatever market it is before the crash, not when the crash happens, right? You want to be out. But out of what? Out of cash, out of crypto, out of gold? Like what? Out of what? Hard to know. I mean, Warren Buffett is stacking cash. What does that mean? If you think the dollar is going to fail, why would you stack cash? That we're talking about Warren Buffett. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That shit is absolutely crazy, but it gets even crazier, bro. Ingersoll Lockwood lived on the exact same street as Nikola Tesla when he wrote this book series.
What?
At the very same time that he was living on this street with Nikola Tesla was claiming that he invented time travel. Like, he deadass was saying, I'm about to make freaking time traveling portals and we're about to do it. And a little bit after, he mysteriously dies in a hotel, and all of his blueprints, all of his inventions are in this hotel when he dies. Guess who gets sent along with the CIA to pick up his blueprints? John G. Trump. Trump's literal blood uncle, bro. Think about it, bro.
I know.
It gets even deeper, though. Werner von Braun.
It's crazy.
Nazi scientist, by the way. Founder of NASA. Wrote a book called Project Mars in 1953 about a man named Elon who takes everyone to Mars.
A prominent Nazi. He was in the Hitler regime. They brought him over here. He was one of the scientists that was smuggled out. Werner von Braun.
The founder of NASA. And now Trump and Tesla are working together. They got space and time. Think about it. Fifth Avenue right by Times Square. I'm telling you, dog, this shit is a simulation, bro.
That's wild. I mean, I've seen some other coverage of that. He put it together pretty well. That is wild. That's wild. All right, I actually have some other. Let me see. Maybe this last one. from Ryan Sikorsky. This is more tinfoily, but not tinfoily actually, because these are real things. Operation Warp Speed was a real thing. Trump was in charge when Operation Warp Speed, he signed off on it, right? So these are things that actually happened. The name of the software that was used during Operation Warp Speed to guide the distribution of the vaccine was called Tiberius. Who else was named Tiberius? The emperor of the Romans when Yahusha was killed. We are in a battle for our brain and for our soul. It was a computer virus. This is the part where I got a little bit off, but anyways. Warp Speed, Warp Seed, Warped. Exodus 2 file. Warped is under continuing development as a research and production quality code for the solution of large-scale 3D, sorry, I'm making this bigger, solid models subjected to static and dynamic loads. The capabilities of the code focus on fatigue and fracture analysis, primarily in metals. Warped runs on laptops. To supercomputers and can analyze models with millions of nodes and elements. The warped distribution includes a Python 3 program that converts the flat description file for the model and flat files of node elements results files into Exodus 2 file compatible with ParaView. The flat results files are generated directly in Warped via output commands. Then they visualize the files as an image with ParaView. From laptop to computer, ParaView is the world's leading open source post-processing visualization engine. It integrates with your existing tools and workflows, allowing you to build visualizations to analyze data quickly. Anyways, he's just describing like these new computer programs. But he's retweeting this. Warp speed, a term coined by the UN chief in 2018. Warp speed technology must be force for good. Trump is just following orders to cut red tape for new technological 2018 warp speed technology must be a force for good, UN chief tells web leaders. Who was president in 2018? But this is a weird quote. Machines that have the power and the discretion to take human lives are politically unacceptable or morally repugnant, should be banned by international law. That's UN Chief Gutierrez. Anyways, I don't know. Interesting connections there. Creative says simulation. Malcolm Young simulation. So you think it's just a simulation of the stories? Could just as easily be the Rockefellers using money to emulate the books, which might have been written as the instructions to follow. Like 1984, right? The fascists are fans of science fiction and fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, right? Which is why they name Palantir and all this, right? So they probably just love those books and recreate the names and stories in the books. Sure. Yeah, this is just the tinfoil segment of Black Bear News. What did Kate call it? Oh, coast to coast, right? This is the coast to coast segment of Black Bear News. Yeah. Probably. It's pretty wild, though. It is, Trump's uncle taking all of Tesla's documents is it's kind of wild. I mean, and that is a thing that happened. It's kind of wild, don't you think? Don't you think that connection there is interesting? It's freaking interesting. I don't know, I don't know what it means, or I don't know, like, I don't know what the real, deep story is on that, but like, it's interesting as hell, I think. Anyways, all right, guys, that does it for me. I will see you tomorrow at the regular time of 12 p.m. Pacific. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for supporting all of you who have supported. I appreciate you. And until next time, beware the bear. Mm-hmm.